Hi, and welcome to another episode of Dare to Think. Today, again, let's start with the weirdness. Today is a weird episode because my girlfriend is watching me while I record this week, which is really fun. She watches me record another Yeah, she's right there. She watches me while I record the other podcast, and No One Gets Away With Anything. Go and hear that one too. That I record with Ariana. Love you, friend. I hope you're listening. And, well, today I want to get into, I want to finish my train of thought from the last episode because I had something really fun to say where we're talking about our ideas and how, our ideas are like, avatars of who we are that I go out into the world and try to live. Ideas are infectious, and, sometimes we, try out ideas and see if that would fit with who we are. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the fun part is, experimenting new things. And what I was talking about last episode is more about having new ideas, liking new things, because it keeps us sane. But then this is something we all have, and the title of this episode will try to highlight this. There is a biased you. There's a part of you that is always biased towards something, and that's a philosophical imperative that has been pointed out several times, that you discriminate. And Peterson says this very well, and it says, look, discrimination is useful. If you can't discriminate between sexual partners, then you literally just marry the person that's next to you. In my case, that wouldn't be so bad. But in most cases, you wouldn't just want to marry the person next to you. You would want to choose you would discriminate by sex. You discriminate by educational level, socioeconomic status. All those things factor in to the mate that you choose for life or for the moment. And the reality is that discrimination is important. But the thing is, everything taken to the extreme is a little bit bad. En este caso, estamos hablando de echo chambers. Okay, echo chambers are such a weird phenomenon. So it's called a positive feedback loop. What happens is you can have a negative feedback loop, which is that some event X happens and it gives off a negative response. And so it becomes less common. And then if it ever happens again, it becomes less common even. So it becomes less likely every time it happens, okay? It's called a negative feedback loop. A positive feedback loop is exactly the opposite. So event X happens, and then after it happens, it becomes more likely that it will happen in the future. So instead of it being this probability, or this would be the distance for it to happen, now it's this. The next time it's this. The next time it's this. Until it gets to a point where the only thing that you're listening to is that, okay? And this is what happens when two microphones pick up each other's sounds. It becomes a positive feedback loop. We've all heard it. If you slow it down, it's something like, wow, 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 wow. But in reality, it's just going so fast that you can't hear, okay? So this happens with ideas. It's really weird, but it does. So if I grew up Catholic and conservative, I will probably have some kind of positive feedback loop in my life. The most common one that I can think of is our YouTube feeds. Like whenever I use my girlfriend's computer, I use Google Chrome to look at YouTube, and she has YouTube on Safari. So when I look at her YouTube, it's literally Emma Chamberlain, makeup videos, and professional choir singers, or like teachers for singing in her feed. If she ever looks at my feed, it's mostly Jordan Peterson and podcasting like Joe Rogan, and either that or football. So our feeds are very different, and they're tailored to us. That's why we have that's the bright side of having an algorithm that tries to find things that you would like. But the thing is that it's so good at finding things that you like that you go into a positive feedback loop. You create an environment that's so much what you like that you have no resistance. You are not exposed to any videos that you really don't want to watch. And even if you are by any accident, the moment that you dislike that video, or the moment that you say not interested, you make the program better at finding your echo chamber, the place where you can say, if I don't like this, and for example, let's make a concrete answer. Kanye West, for example, saying that the Jewish people are in charge of the banks, and then it's like, well, if you ask, I don't know, everybody in my classroom, probably 99% of people would be against this idea. The thing is, the internet allows people to be coordinated in that very big distance. So you go on Reddit and you say Jews control banks, and you will probably find a subreddit dedicated to it where there's like, let's say, 1,200 active members. That means that you have 1,200 people who think the same thing as you. So you can literally say whatever you want about that subject and they will agree with you. And it becomes a collective, a group. And we have all of this wired into us. We have a weakness towards our biases. And that's, I mean this in the most, welcoming way possible. It's not good. I mean, seriously. It's good when you need to get to the bottom of something. So if I've ever had to investigate something and become really good at something really quickly, it's awesome because you can find accurate information really quickly. It also depends on the medium. If you're trying to get good at, for example, sports or, health, so getting to go to the gym or becoming a weightlifter or diet, there's so much diverging information that it's really difficult to find. But when you find those 2-3 really good people that do the right job of like scientifically combing through and finding the proper ways to do certain things, those 2-3 people connect you to 6 more, and those 6 connect you to 12 more, and then you have your echo chamber. So it's even in places where it's incredibly convoluted to find the proper scientific knowledge to actually act on what you're doing for diet and exercise specifically, you can find them. And once you find them, it's incredibly easy to detect the ones that you don't like. But again, you create this identity and it solidifies. It's incredible how biased we can become just because of what we watch on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. It's crazy fast and it's crazy accurate. And generally speaking, it's something that we don't take into consideration. And this is the part that humbles me, which is maybe you're wrong. And I used to hate that phrase, but now I find a lot of reassurance to it. Maybe you don't have the answers. Maybe if it fits in your brain sometimes, and I confess, soy la persona más terca del mundo. O sea, mi novia sufre a veces con tratar de hacerme ver la razón, and I'm very difficult to reason with sometimes because I really truthfully defend my ideas when I believe that they are true, but sometimes I also defend them because I don't want to lose, and that's the case for most people. In general, I think. Maybe I'm an extreme case, but I think in general we do. And the thing is, I remember being in my career and we were talking about climate change. Climate change is, people would think it wasn't a divisive topic, and it isn't in one sense, but it is in another. So climate change is a thing, okay? So the climate is changing, but there's a big debate about how and why, and how responsible we are towards it, and how much the things that we can do to change the environment actually work. And so in my career, I've posited the notion, I've talked to the people that study with me, and they are the classic climate change types that, they say, look, and it's a totally respectable stance to have. Like, look, we're hurting the environment and we must, make policies that make that better. And they are people that grew up in Europe in general. So they are people that believe and they have this like state-centric view where you can, make a policy and it works. Like in Germany, the government in Germany gives you your trash bags, and like they have a QR code. And if you like throw the wrong thing in the trash, they scan your QR code and they send you a fine. So that's something that a European country can do, but it's not something that every country can do. And then I argued the fact that, look, even if you can do that, how much is that organized effort? How efficient is that organized effort? And then how much of an impact does that actually have? Which is incredibly difficult to calculate. And it's incredibly difficult to actually see. But it turns out that the amount of change that we can do in those little things, it's not insignificant, but it's not nearly enough to change everything, right? And even the most extreme ones, like, stopping cattle growth so that we have a lot of less CO2 emissions, it would be catastrophic in one sense and too costly in another. And so you get into this, web of ideas that make it seem like everything is impossible. And then these, reasonably so, they start defending their ideas very fervently. And then I go on this side of the argument, which is, there are two arguments about climate change. One in which we are harming the environment, and that's why the Earth is heating up. And then there's another one that says the Earth, if you look at the Earth instead of in hundreds of years, if you look at it in thousands or tens of thousands of years, the Earth has been heating up naturally for a while because it's following a cycle of really hot, really cold. You know, you've all heard of the ice ages, and it's a natural cycle that the Earth goes through, and we're not really sure why. And you could make the argument that that's the case. I believe that both of those are true, that we are contributing to it, and then it's also a natural tendency of the world. But when you have those ideas, and I'm sure there's an idea that I haven't incorporated yet, but when you have those ideas and you aren't willing to integrate the other, it becomes increasingly difficult to see anything. So my point is, who wants to know the answer to climate change? Because if you do know the answer to climate change and you try to communicate it to people, most of the time they won't listen to you because they have their own ideas that they will fervently defend. I find a lot of comfort in not knowing the answer to climate change. And I find comfort in it because it means that I'm not the expert. I'm not the person who knows the most about this. It's not on me. I do my best to try and keep myself informed and to inform others as much as possible without being belittling. But I think the most important thing is maybe you're wrong, and maybe that's good. Maybe what we need is to be a little bit more wrong more often. To the end of this episode, I'm going to thank somebody different this time. I'm going to go and thank the people that I study with, because everybody at my university, because even though our debates can get a bit difficult at times, you've taught me that there's perspectives that I don't know and that I don't see every day, and that maybe I'm wrong, and that's totally okay. I'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.